Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. Let me tell you something, man. You see this whole thing about boxing right now, and we had a good run at the end of the year in Saudi Arabia with the heavyweights. This year, some people feel boxing starting off slow. I don't necessarily agree with that. But let me tell you something. For boxing fans out there could be something really, really juicy on the horizon with two fighters that go all out. I mean, in an all-action style approach to fighting. Now, the two fighters I'm talking about, which I think would totally shake up the boxing world. Now, if you know me, when I talk about aggressive fighters and guys standing in the ring and going, like Manny Pacquiao would say, do, do, do. You know, I call that shit the mash-up, crash-up. And that's what a lot of people like to see. Even if you have the boxer puncher in the ring, you like to see them at some time stop and let their hands go with hard shots and bing their opponent. We like to see damage being done. But let me tell you something that could be coming. And I'm talking about none other than Pitbull Cruz facing off against Subriel Matias. Now, the way that could happen is with Cruz about to fight Romero. If Pitbull Cruz, who averages about 36 to 40 punches around, and he averages that he lands between 11 and 15, right? If he can somehow beat Romero, now there are a lot of people who are giving Cruz a chance to get in there and tranquilize Romero. A lot of people. But there are others who are saying it's not going to be that easy. Pitbull Cruz is short, his arms aren't that long, and he's going to have to basically cut the ring off and try to trap Rolly. But at the same time, he's going in against a guy like Romero, who has legs just as good as Jermaine Ortiz or Devin Haney. Now, for those of you who are saying, why in the world would we make a comparison between Romero's footwork and Devin Haney's or Jermaine Ortiz? I didn't compare the footwork. I'm talking about having legs, healthy legs, well-conditioned legs, to where he can circle that ring from the first second of the first round to the last second of the last round. And you saw Rolly demonstrate that he could do that when he fought Ismael Barroso. Now, one of the main discernments between Rolly and his fight with Barroso, and what I think is going to happen between Rolly and Pitbull Cruz, is Pitbull Cruz looks to cut the ring off, get low, and explode. Barroso was more trying to time Rolly. That's what was giving Rolly problems with Barroso, where Rolly had to be careful. But Pitbull Cruz is almost what you see is what you get. He's coming at you. It's going to be a mashup, crasher. I'm not going to say he's not thinking, but Pitbull Cruz, he's an IQ fighter, but it's a lot different. Instead of trying to set you up and land one shot, he's using that pressure to stress you, make a mistake, and then he capitalizes. Rolly was facing Barroso. It was a totally different ball of wax. So that being said, just like there are many people who feel Cruz is going to beat Rolly, there are a lot of people who feel that Rolly has a great chance to not just beat Cruz, but knock him out. Because when Cruz was in there with a fighter who hit hard, he was in there with a fighter who a lot of people felt only had one healthy hand, and that was Tank Davis. Everyone else he faced couldn't really crack like that. With Rolly, look, every boxer who's been around Rolly, around him sparring, around him working, they said Romero hits hard. Even Tank Davis said he was shocked at just how hard Rolly hit. And Tank said he knew he could get hurt messing around Rolly. That's how hard he hit. So for Tank to come out and say that, like, I haven't been hit that hard before, that tells me that there's obviously some truth to Rolly's having strong hands, right? For that reason, there are a lot of people who feel Rolly is going to knock out Cruz, who's going to come straight at him, and Rolly going to hit him with something that Cruz has never felt. That being said, if Cruz wins, which there's a chance he can win that fight, he picks up a WBC strap. Subriel Matias, right? Pitbull Cruz averages 36, 40 punches around, lands about, 11 to 15. Subriel Matias, this man, when he gets going, averages over 70 punches around and lands about 20 to 30% of them, right? Subriel Matias is a problem. So he's about to fight, I think, Liam Paro. It's going to be an interesting fight, but I just see Matias being able to start to, pick up the pace, and start to touch up and chop down Liam Paro. And his style is similar to Pitbull Cruz in the sense to where they cut that ring off and they stress their opponent, which forces their opponent to make mistakes. And then that's when Subriel Matias starts to really put on that pressure and land those Puerto Rican bing bings. And the uniqueness of Subriel Matias' hands, right? I'll never get over in his most recent fight when he was fighting Ergashev. The very next day, Ergashev posted a photo of his face. And I'm going to tell you, when I was watching that fight, I didn't think he was getting hit that hard. Obviously, there's something super special about Subriel Matias' hands. Same thing about Rolly Romero and the power he has. There's something freakish about Subriel Matias. That being said, if he beats Liam Paro, okay, this is where shit gets interesting. If Matias beats Paro, which a lot of us feel he has a great chance of getting that victory, right? And him with his strap, then you'll have Pitbull Cruz with a WBC strap, right? And you got Devin Haney about to fight Ryan Garcia. If he beats Ryan Garcia, no, it'll be the WBA strap. Rolly has a WBA strap. So Pitbull Cruz will have a WBA strap. Then if Devin Haney fights Ryan Garcia and beats him, or whoever wins, there's a WBC strap there, right? And Tiafimo. Bottom line is, I could see out of all those possible matchups, right? Tio, Subriel, Pitbull with the WBA, and then the winner of Rolly and not Rolly, Ryan and Devin with the WBC. The most intriguing fight that can be made. Now, I'm not talking about the fight that will make the most money. The most intriguing fight that can be made will be Puerto Rico versus Mexico. Subriel Matias against Isaac Pitbull Cruz. And when you talk about a fight where someone's going to get hurt, let me put this damn thing silent. Where someone is going to get hurt, well, that's what you're talking about when you got Subriel Matias against a guy like Pitbull Cruz. It's not just a matter of these guys fighting in a unification bout, right? And first, I don't know if Eddie Hearn would want to make that fight, because in order for Pitbull Cruz to be effective, for the most part, you got to be right in front of him, okay? And if Matias was to fight him, I haven't seen Matias be a boxer puncher. He's more coming forward, like Pitbull Cruz, pressuring you and chopping you down. I'm not so sure Eddie Hearn would want to make that fight. But what I was saying is, I think that fight is very, very interesting. Because Pitbull Cruz, I think Pitbull Cruz is the most dangerous in those first 4 rounds. Pitbull Cruz comes out there firing, man. From the first 3 rounds, your ass is in trouble if you're not ready for that Mexican putting them bing bings on you. But that being said, this may be, if they make that fight, you may see Matias coming in like Tito Trinidad and box, punch, move around, and show some IQ that he has, but hasn't necessarily had to really show in the ring, because styles make fights. He may change up his style for Pitbull Cruz, because it doesn't matter how much pride you have as a Puerto Rican fighter, Mexican fighter. You're not coming in the ring to just say I was in a good fight, get knocked out, and go home and expect everybody to champion you. No, you're going to come in that fight to win. But I do believe if Subriel Matias was to fight Pitbull Cruz, and if, remember, I'm just saying if, Subriel Matias chose to change up his style for that fight, at least the first few rounds, I think at some point in time he's going to go back to being what he is. And that's a guy who comes in there and looks for the mashup crasher. And for those of you saying, no, they would never make this fight, you don't know what would happen. Because there's a couple of things. If Pitbull Cruz picks up that WBA strap off of Rolly, Pitbull Cruz not going, what's Pitbull Cruz going to do? He's not going anywhere. He's fighting at 140. And Pitbull Cruz would probably be looking for Ryan. But the fight to make, to me, would be Pitbull Cruz, Subriel Matias. I think that's the fight to make. You want to talk about Arturo Ward, a Mickey Ward, Arturo Gotti type of fight? That's what you'll get. Two guys who are going to come straight at each other, and it's going to be maximum violence. But we got to wait and see how everything plays out. One thing I know for Eddie Hearn, it doesn't matter what anyone says about Pitbull Cruz's height, about his lack of reach. Pitbull Cruz is a threat to anybody. Anybody. And what's his name? Subriel just signed a five fight deal with Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn, I don't think Eddie Hearn I think Eddie Hearn prefer to put Subriel in a fight with Devin Haney, a fight with Ryan, a fight with Teofimo, any of those guys before he puts him in a fight with Pitbull Cruz. Simple. But I think the fight to make, if Pitbull Cruz can get past Rolly and if Subriel gets past Paro, is instead of waiting here for Berlanga, who's over there signed to Matchroom, to try to make Berlanga versus Canelo or Berlanga versus Pacheco or Berlanga versus Munguia, the Puerto Rican Mexico thing, we can get it sooner with Isaac Pitbull Cruz and Subriel Matias. And let me tell you something. That fight, because the Mexican fans they lose their goddamn minds over Pitbull Cruz. They lose their minds over Canelo, but they lose their minds over Pitbull Cruz too. And when it comes to the Puerto Rican, you already know the Puerto Ricans, man. You're a Puerto Rican fighter, man. Jesus Christ, them goddamn Puerto Rican flags all over the place, in their car, in the goddamn house, on their keychain. They got Puerto Rican shoelaces, everything Puerto Rico. The goddamn cell phone cases, Puerto Rico. But in Puerto Rico, you're going to support Matias. And where they would have this fight, I don't know. But I tell you what, the buildup would be crazy. They'd have to do a press conference in Puerto Rico. They would have to do one in Mexico, probably in New York. Like, you're talking about getting the red carpet treatment. If they can make Pitbull Cruz against Subriel Matias, they have to win their next fights. I'm telling you, that fight right there would be massive. Massive. I just truly believe that, man. At least for boxing fans. But at the same time, their profiles will be raised. Pitbulls will be raised a bit more because Rolly has a big name in boxing. Whether people want to give him credit for it or not, Rolly has a big name. If Cruz can chop him down, he goes from being the guy who some people feel beat Tank to who's continued winning, and to come out and beat Rolly, the guy who people feel that was defeating Tank until he got tranquilized. So that would do, miracles for Pitbull Cruz's profile. Now, Subriel Matias, what's the one advantage Matias has over most of these fighters? He's over there with Eddie Hearn now. So Eddie Hearn is going to promote him. Eddie Hearn's going to market him. Eddie Hearn's going to talk him up. Eddie Hearn's going to go to Don King route, probably be waving some Puerto Rico flags and shouting, "Viva Puerto Rico! Viva!" Don King, "Viva Puerto Rico!" Eddie Hearn be doing that same shit. That way, Matias can focus on fighting and training to fight and win. That being said, Subriel Matias versus Isaac Pitbull Cruz, that's not a dream match anymore. It's just a matter of Pitbull Cruz doing what he's got to do against Rolly, which is not an easy fight. and for Subriel to do what he's got to do against Puerto, which again, it's not an easy fight. But I think the fights are winnable, and if they both win, out of everyone else out there who has titles, I think the most entertaining fight would be Pitbull Cruz against Subriel Matias. That's what you call a mashup crasher. Y'all keep cool. Shout out to the veterans, all 7 continents, in the breeze.